Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Pandora's Jar. I'm J Wes Secord, the obnoxious one. Our bag of facts, Mr. Bad Ben, and as always, our friend AT Token. Now, to get on to the subject, what would that be today, Mr. Ben?
Well, today we're going to talk about the Circleville letters.
I love circles, I like vills, and I like letters. Particularly W.
Oh, I see. So W.
No, not I or C. W.
That kind of makes sense. All right, so let's just set up where Circleville is.
Yes.
So Circleville is a city and the county seat for Pickaway County in Ohio. It's 25 miles south of Columbus, which is the capital of Ohio. Just for your information, Wes.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, how are letters a crime? What's going on here?
Okay.
Well, let him tell it. It's part of the story.
The story involves letters, but not, those letters. Well, I guess they're kind of involved in that. You kind of need the letters to make the letter. You kind of need the letters to make the letters.
It's true. I wrote one once.
It's kind of like an Inception thing. You need letters within letters.
letters to letters. In order to characterize letters.
English sucks.
Well, I think that letters exist in almost all languages. Even in sign language, you sign out the letters.
This would be the same thing or 7 different things.
I guess not.
But you know what? We should just get a character from another culture and put words in that with other letters from other cultures. And then we put all of that into a letter, so then it's a letter of letters in a letter.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Funny enough. Anyways, so the city gets its name. It's derived from the original layout created in 1810, which was built on the diameter of a circle from Hopewell tradition earthwork. So Hopewell tradition earthwork, I had to look that up as well. It's actually native indigenous people's original cultural centers. When they built them, they would build monuments and build their cities around these areas to make them more accessible and a lot easier to traverse.
Oh.
And because it's a circle, it's a lot easier to see the entire, you can stand at any certain point and kind of see around yourself and know where everything kind of is. So when it was settled, they just kind of built on top of it. However, by the mid-1850s, all traces of that earthwork were pretty well destroyed. And Circleville became just kind of another city in Ohio, and it slowly branched out and moved away from being circles. So I'm sorry, Wes.
I am really disappointed. Why do white people ruin everything? God.
Well, as an indigenous person, just saying.
As every variant of enslaved.
As a white man. I will say nothing more than that.
You brought it up.
So, just kind of like a history of the place. In the mid-18th century, I'm going to completely butcher this, Lenape people, they're Delaware Indians. I hate saying that. They were pushed west from Pennsylvania by the European settlers and were flowing into the economy. They were given permission by the Wendat people to settle in Ohio County. One of the settlements was Maguk, built in 1750. It's on the banks of the Scotia River.
Now, out of curiosity, why do you hate saying that?
The word Indian?
Oh, that's the part. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I misheard. I heard you kind of sort of whispered it there because I heard Delaware.
I hate saying that.
Yeah. No, I completely understand.
I really hate Delaware.
No, I don't. Well, some Americans I think do, but I think they're really still pretty bad for calling them Indians.
Well, they do a team called the Redskins, so.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
So, about the circles.
So anyways, the Circleville area was first explored by Christopher Gist.
Excuse me?
Yep, his name was Gist.
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 Oh, I got it.
Yep, Gist.
He was the first European visitor in the area that was recorded anyways. He brought in some families into the area and basically settled this little settlement for them. Settled the settlement.
Right, of course.
I'm a linguistics person.
I can tell. You just, probably spout out, spoken word poetry like a god.
Yeah. Anyways, it was founded into a town, then into a city. It was pretty, and then they eventually started squaring out the circles, the original circle architecture, kind of moved away.
Literally squaring it out?
Yeah, they began instead of it being like a circle, they started actually building it into a grid like a normal city.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
There's only roughly about 13,000 people there as of the 2010 census, so it's not a very large city. Even here, we're 115,000 people.
It's also a 10-year-old census.
Yep. October 13, 1999, there was an F3 tornado that hit the city. It touched down on the north side of the town. And then did some substantial damage to a barbershop and a masonry building. Yeah, furniture store was also damaged with a hole in the roof, and it was reported that some items were sucked out through the roof of the store.
So, A, the tornado is a thief. B, the tornado was upset they took away the circles. And C, the tornado is a thief.
In all honesty, all I keep picturing is the scene from Twister when the cow's going around and be like, cow, another cow. And then all I can think is couch, another couch.
Lucky only that damage happened. It only got 250 to 350 kVA.
Yeah, it kind of destroyed a couple homes and damaged some trees and vehicles, but nothing.
That could wipe out the entire town if you're unlucky, though.
Yeah.
So, did the tornado get away with the stuff?
I'm guessing so.
No one's caught.
They never arrested it.
Now, I picture a tornado with arms. It tore off the roof and started grabbing items, and then there's a tornado being arrested by cops with handcuffs and everything.
So as people who live in Kingston, because we're gonna give away where we are, the largest DuPont chemical plant is in Ohio, is actually in Circleville. They produce Mylar and Tedlar plastic films. And then they eventually started doing photovoltaic modules.
Photovoltaics?
Yeah.
It's like solar panels.
There's also a Seattle-based truck manufacturing company there. It's been operating for over 35 years.
For the record, we're in the Kingston section of Canada-Town, USA. It's a big enough town.
In Middle Dakota.
Middle Dakota.
All right. So, anyways, there's actually a really famous thing about Circleville on top of these letters. And I kind of got stuck down this rabbit hole, so you guys got to come with me.
Ooh, like Alice in Wonderland?
The city is best known today as the host of the Circleville Pumpkin Show that has been running as an annual festival since 1903. The festival began in 1903 when the mayor, George R. Haswell, decided to hold a pumpkin and corn exhibit in front of his store for the local harvest, and the prominence of the pumpkins was what coined the name. In 1905, they installed their first ride, and as the event continued to be successful, it brought in merchants and built a little market.
That makes me feel like we live in a metropolis. Jesus.
I'm so happy right now. It's like fall all the time or something.
So get this. The city is only 13,000 people, but the 4-day event has topped out attendance at 400,000 people in this town.
Crap.
So, people are just standing at the borders of this thing and like
22 times the population.
So they do average out about 300,000, but the top attendance was about 400,000. For a pumpkin festival.
Just a big circle of crowds of people.
Oh, it gets better.
Good.
Every year, Lindsay's Bakery makes the world's largest pumpkin pie. The wait time for this line, can sometimes be over an hour just to see the pie.
You're going to get a slice?
There's also 2 pageants to crown Little Miss Pumpkin Show Queen and Miss Pumpkin Show Queen.
I am actually very disappointed with that.
It
It should have been Little Miss Pumpkin Pie. Why? That is a missed opportunity. Doesn't anyone else see this?
There's also 7 parades over the 4 days.
4 days, 7 parades,
All for pumpkins.
and I'm guessing 1 highway cut through this town.
All for pumpkins. They must have a great Halloween.
I'm just saying, I got sucked down this rabbit hole and was like, I gotta. Like,
Wait, there should be a Tiger King of this.
Oh my God.
Just pumpkins.
Netflix.
And then there's a whole conspiracy behind the pumpkins, and the pumpkins themselves are alien creatures taking over the minds of the people.
All right. Sit down to the story. Now that we know where we are, let's talk about Mary Gillespie.
Ooh.
So Mary drives a bus for she drove a bus for the school system, and in 1976, some letters began appearing around the town. Now, these letters are very odd, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about them later. However, Mary receives a couple letters, and they are essentially telling her to end an affair she's having with the school superintendent, Gordon Massey. Now, this would be scandalous because a bus driver sleeping with the school superintendent is kind of a conflict of interest.
You know, married?
Both of them are married.
Lovely.
Mary is actually...
It's an affair?
Yeah.
Duh.
Mary is actually married and has a couple kids. So...
Ooh, she drives to school every day.
That's a fun break.
Yeah.
And then once a year tries to enter her kids into the beauty pageant.
Little Miss Pumpkin Pie. You know what? We're making our own. It's going to be called that. No one will know about it, but we're doing it.
So anyways, the letters were a little bit of the talk of the town, but Mary, when she received her letters, actually kept them relatively quiet. However, she couldn't hide the existence of these letters when her husband, Ron, received one as well. In Ron's, it said to put an end to the affair or his life would be in danger. This is where this letter is actually one of the odd ones. Most of the other letters don't threaten to any kind of severity like this, but his seemed to be the only one that he received, basically saying, like, if you don't do something, you're going to get killed. Yeah. Mary's letters actually stated things like, if you don't come public with your affair or don't end your affair, I'm going to broadcast it all over CBs and put it in newspapers and put it up on posters and things like that. And she just kind of disregarded it. However, Ron's was like, your wife's having an affair and you got to end it or else you'll die.
Who is so invested in this affair?
Yeah.
And the worst part is it's the bus driver getting it. I feel like the other guy has much more of a reputation.
Yeah, and other people in town, but other people in town are getting these letters, and it does have secrets just like this, like secrets in their lives that are coming out.
It's the priest.
So it's not just her.
No, but hers is the most prominent and most well documented, and you'll find out why as it goes on. But
okay.
So anyways, when Ron received it, he confronted Mary about this, because obviously the letter says that you're having an affair. Why are you fucking the school superintendent? And then she's like, I'm not, and she managed to convince him that she wasn't having an affair, that these letters are lying. So a few weeks goes by, and then about 2 weeks goes by, and then Ron receives another letter that says that you've had 2 weeks to end this affair, and you haven't, So you have to do something about it or your life's in danger. Like, again, what's with threatening Ron? Like, he's the one being cheated on. Like,
Ron, why?
So, anyways, together, the couple ended up reaching out to 3 other people that they trusted. Ron's sister, Karen, and Karen's husband, Paul Freshour, and Paul Freshour's sister.
Freshour?
Yeah.
That's
I've heard
very bad spin-off of
I've heard it pronounced Fresher, but also I don't think that's the name. It is actually spelled Freshour. Freshour.
It's the not so good sequel to spin-off to Rush Hour.
Yeah. It's Rush Hour taking place in Subway.
Rush Hour.
So anyways, the group all got together and they all came up with a theory as to who they thought was writing the letters. So they started writing letters and started making, like, basically threats to this person of, like, you know, hey, stop writing these letters, stop harassing us, or we're going to come after you. And at first, it seemed to work. The letters stopped for several weeks. But then they kind of came back with a vengeance. In August 19th, 1977, Ron Gillespie was at home with his kids, and he received a phone call. And the conversation that took place kind of really shook Ron up. So much so that he went and grabbed his pistol, jumped into his truck, then tore off down the street.
And he left his kids behind?
I'm guessing so. Mary wasn't actually home at the time. So, a few minutes later, Ron was found dead inside of his pickup truck. His truck had crashed into a tree. And upon further investigation, it was noted that Ron's gun had fired 1 round.
I assume Ron had no bullet holes?
They couldn't find any bullet holes. They couldn't even find a bullet casing. So
could have gone off and crashed.
Yeah.
There was reports that the writer, like the Circleville writer, actually had been talking about how he had been watching and, you know, I know you have a red and white truck, things like that. So nobody knows who this call was from, but it's presumed to be the Circleville writer, but that's a whole part of the conversation to come later. But nobody knows exactly, but it does get pushed a lot that this must have been the Circleville writer, because why else did he go and grab the gun and rush out of there, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe, who was actually a second-generation Radcliffe sheriff, so like his father served there, and they actually were in power for about 50 to 70 years as sheriffs. He did question and eliminate at least one suspect, but the death was eventually ruled an accident, as it was reported that Ron Gillespie's blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. Again, sometimes, because some of these reports are kind of like wavery, but sometimes it's reported as 0.16.
Jeez.
The suspicious thing about this, though, is it really surprised his family because Ron wasn't known as a heavy drinker.
Huh.
So,
Under a bit of duress there.
Yeah, but he wasn't really... They said that he didn't really go after alcohol, and plus he's watching his kids, so what's going on, right? After her husband's death, Mary Gillespie actually came out and admitted to having an affair with the superintendent, Gordon Massey. However, she claimed the affair began after the letters, not before. I don't buy that for a fucking second.
It's also a weird thing to claim.
Yeah.
Are you saying that when the letters started coming, you were like, oh, wow, what a great idea. Like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, if I'm going to get blamed, I might as well.
Yeah. If I get accused, I might as well do the crime.
So anyways, a few years goes by, and in February 1983, Mary found threatening signs posted along her bus route, most threatening her daughter's life. After a few days, so like she'd be going by and they'd be like, we're going to kill your daughter, things like that. And they're posted up, like, I guess on like
their ad sign?
I guess they just have them up, not like ad signs like that, but I guess like just put on like posts and stuff like that.
It's saying vote for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
After a few days of this, she just decided she really had enough. Like, stop, like, what the fuck? So she goes and rips one of the signs down, and this unveils a box that Mary then, and this is really suspicious to me, took into the bus and proceeded with the rest of her route. So she has kids in this bus, and she takes this little box that she found behind a thing and keeps going. Meanwhile, she's been getting these threatening letters, and her husband died, and all this, like, it's a little weird.
What?
Yeah.
Why? It's a bomb!
So, anyway.
This guy is already crazy enough to send all these letters.
I don't know, it's pretty targeted.
But but he's sending them to everybody, right? This is just the specific one that we're like, oh, wow, you know.
It's the one that got the response.
Exactly. And he maybe, like, now I'm also wondering, did he leave a box on every sign? Like he did?
I'm going to guess from your
That's a pretty good question. I don't believe so. I believe that when they searched these signs, there wasn't.
So she found the only sign of the box?
Yeah. She just happened upon the only one.
Did he calculate that? Like, what?
Anyways, she then brought...
The person.
So, she then brought the box home and began prying it open. She said it was very difficult to pry open because there was a fair amount of glue sealing the box. But once inside, she found a makeshift booby trap consisting of a pistol and like some styrofoam pieces to hold it in place, and a line that basically, once the police had taken a look at it, showed that if she had pulled in a certain way when she pulled that sign piece off, it would have fired and killed her.
Okay.
But she finds this, and at first she does. So at first she thinks
Jigsaw.
So at first she thinks the pistol's fake. So she then, again, this is where I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It took her several hours to report this to the police and bring the box to the police. She like just kept going with the rest of her day. As if she didn't just find this box with a pistol inside of it.
And a guy who killed her husband, and
some people's stress responses would...
Well, again, her husband's death was ruled an accident because of the drunk driving.
I don't think she would believe it. I would be like super
We
paranoid.
also wouldn't do what she's doing, so she couldn't just be that kind of person.
That's true.
So anyways, the police inspector... Well, here's the thing about that, though. The police have been involved with her about these letters and then her husband passing away and all this investigation. So they've been teaching her tactics on how to, like, collect evidence properly, things like that, not tamper with crime scenes. By taking that box away, you're automatically tampering with the crime scene. Then you pry open the damn box.
Wait, why would they do that? Wouldn't she be suspect number one?
For the letters? To receive them letters?
Technically, I mean, well, for the murder. If it was a murder. For her husband dying.
No, but they actually ruled it as an accident, and the police buy it as an accident.
Oh, okay.
They don't proceed from there. But anyway, so the police inspected the pistol and found that there was a poor attempt at scraping off the serial number. When they ran the number that they managed to get, it came up belonging to Paul Freshour, who at this point had separated and divorced from Ron Gillespie's sister, Karen. Now, when this happened, Paul originally had won everything in the divorce. He won the house, he won custody of the kids, and Karen had actually moved on to Mary's property. So basically, it's her sister-in-law's from her dead brother's, like the same property, and apparently they were very, very close. Paul was questioned, and he stated that the pistol had been stolen.
Was it reported?
He never reported it, though.
Always.
February 25th, 1983, Sheriff Radcliffe actually conducted a handwriting test with Paul, where he would get Paul to attempt to copy the Circleville letters just to see if they were there. He also would have him copying it while Radcliffe would read them out verbally. And so...
Presumably one without telling him the purpose, because...
Yeah. After the test, Paul took the sheriff to his garage and showed him where he would usually have stored the gun. They then returned to the courthouse, and Paul Freshour was officially arrested and charged with attempted murder. October 24th, Paul went into trial. He was never charged with writing the letters, but they were a key portion of the evidence that was used against him.
So that was part of the prosecution.
Yeah. So other things that were in there as well were things like, why didn't you ever report your gun stolen? And I think that part of it is he didn't really notice it. I'll get into Paul's whole life piece after this. They had a handwriting expert that testified that the Circleville letters are Paul Freshour's handwriting. Mary Gillespie even testified against him, saying that she had began to suspect him as the writer after his wife, Karen, so his ex-wife now, had come to her with the same suspicions. Kind of weird that Karen would all of a sudden come to Mary after they'd all gotten together thinking that it was somebody else, and then just be like, oh, I think it's Paul, after you're getting a divorce. Like,
why is everybody coming up with this now?
Yeah. They also had Paul's boss testify that he was not at work at the day of the booby trap being found. However, Paul had a solid and strong alibi for the day, but he didn't use this in his defense. He never took the stand. He never testified for himself.
Could have been on his lawyer recommendation. And that doesn't necessarily mean much because that box could have been there for weeks.
We'll get into that. He was then convicted and given a 7 to 24 year sentence. He proclaimed his innocence right up until his death in 2012 at the age of 70.
In prison, presumably?
No, he got released from prison. While in prison, the letters didn't stop. They kept happening. Paul was suspected to have been writing the letters at first, but eventually got ruled out. He was actually receiving letters in prison himself, taunting him. One letter even stated, "When are you going to accept that you're not getting out of there? I told you 2 years ago, when we set them up, they stay set up." This kind of cast some views at Sheriff Radcliffe possibly being part of this whole Circleville writer thing. That's a whole thing on its own. The prison wardens and guards initially believed that Paul was writing these letters and somehow getting them to the outside and then getting sent back to him. During the time he was there, though, he would be strip searched before and after every meeting with any person. And even in an attempt to try and stop the letters, they put him in a solitary confinement. He would still receive these letters, and they were all postmarked from Columbus. His jail was where he was being jailed was nowhere near Columbus, in Lima, Ohio.
Jeez.
In December 1990, Paul became eligible for parole, but he was denied due to letters not stopping. So basically because they thought he was still sending the letters.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, even though the wardens and the guards believe that he's completely innocent, they realize now that there's no way he could possibly be sending these letters from solitary confinement.
Society, he would have been released on appeal immediately.
Yeah. He is finally granted parole in May 1994. And after a few years of being out, he did release a full 120-page document about the case and possible suspects, including his former wife, whom he stated, "I would believe anything she says as she's religious now." And there actually is a letter that arrived later on after Paul was released, because the letters didn't stop when Paul got released. They kept going.
Did they ever stop?
They did eventually cease, yes. There is a letter that arrived at a later time that claimed the letter writer has "Jesus with me now." That's a quote from the letter. "Jesus with me now." So obviously the letter writer is suddenly religious. So there was another suspect that was seen where the box was placed, and in Paul, so I actually read through these documents. I actually went pretty deep into this. Paul, in his documents and everything, he actually has court transcripts and his own thoughts and his own theories and all this good stuff. And he does try to shy away from blaming Karen, his ex-wife. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why he's so
might still love her.
Doing that. Yeah, there's some sort of loyalty there, I guess. But after they had separated and stuff like that, Karen actually began seeing another guy. And there was another suspect that was seen on the day the box was placed, near where the box was placed. A large man with sandy hair driving a yellow El Camino.
Is that match Karen's new partner?
So, first of all, Paul Freshour is not a large man. He's only 5'7". Mm-hmm. And they did find a footprint. And the footprint that they found there's no way that Paul Freshour's foot could fill it. And also, Paul Freshour had dark brown hair, not sandy hair. So it just so happened that Karen's new boyfriend had a brother who drove a yellow El Camino. So
you were there. You were there. It was like a degree thing.
Yeah. So, anyways, in doing this whole research thing on this, there's so many aspects of this that don't match up because the letters did eventually stop. Actually, there was a journalist on this who received letters when he was coming up with his other suspect. He's actually the one who broke it. Martin Yunt. He actually did like a full scoop on this, was writing newspaper articles about it. He received a couple letters, and some of them were very threatening. Like, leave it alone, don't come into this, you don't want to keep going forward with this, we know who you are, we'll find you, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, Unexplained Mysteries decided to do an actual whole episode on this, and when it was revealed that they were doing an episode on this, they received a letter.
What?
Going around.
And it basically said, don't do the episode, leave the sheriff out of it, don't go after Mary Gillespie, all this kind of stuff. It's really weird. And again, in Paul's documents that he released, there's like some points where he's talking to where he's literally, you can almost hear him pleading with the FBI. Look into this, clear my name, do this. Like, that's the unfortunate thing, right? But he actually does point the finger a lot at the sheriff. And there's a lot of evidence against the sheriff on a lot of these things. For instance, Ron Gillespie, it was documented that he had fired one shot off. Who is he firing at? Where did the casing go? Did they find any gunpowder residue on it? Was that even a thing back in 1976? 1977? Was that an actual thing? I couldn't really find when they started doing these kind of things, but the fact that there's no casing and they couldn't find a bullet hole, and it's not like he shot out his window. Was he like, who did he fire at? Did it like get shot off in the accident?
There's a lot of questions and very few answers.
Yeah, so there's a whole thing in there about how this is probably a cover-up from the police, and the police probably know who was writing these things.
Or just good old-fashioned negligence and laziness.
Well, also...
Good old.
Also, part of this is the whole, Mary having an affair, and then she claimed that she was having the affair after the letters. I don't think so.
Yeah, that... I fucking...
I shot him after he tried to shoot me.
So even the way that these letters are written, when they're talking about a handwriting test, these letters were written very carefully to hide whoever it was' handwriting. Sometimes they look a certain way, sometimes like the other. They're always block letters, but they... Like, sometimes an A is capitalized, while in other... Like, when they look later, it's not capitalized. Or the lowercase a is the same size as, like, it's the same size as a capitalized A, yet in the next sentence they use another A that's a normal lowercase size. Like, it's obvious that whoever was writing this was trying to throw people off. Like,
deliberately.
Yeah. And some of them are typed letters. Like, the letters are not always the same style, which then puts into question, maybe there was more than one person writing these letters.
Well, I would have guessed.
Yeah, I was thinking from the beginning there must have been an accomplice, especially because I think there was a part where they brought that up.
There's a couple
with Freshour there.
Yeah. And then the fact that, like, Paul Freshour was in jail for this and he served his sentence. He served 10 years in jail for this.
He gets a minimum sentence.
Yeah, like, and it was obvious that he didn't do this. Like, it's super obvious. And he had that alibi, but why didn't he testify that? Why didn't he go and push that alibi out there? Like...
Sounds like he knows his wife's in on it.
Yeah. And then the thing that gets me about this is maybe he didn't realize his gun was stolen. Who else would have known where he keeps his gun and had access to the house? And so what if she...
To be fair, in a small town, like, you don't necessarily lock the door.
Yeah, so... So that's just it, is what if she went in there, stole the gun, and he didn't even know it was missing, or when he did see it, it was like, oh, it must have gotten stolen or something. And then when it was found in this trap. And then another thing, Mary hesitating so much on these whole, like on the whole thing. And it says in there, so in some of these court documents, they talk about how poorly made this trap actually was. Like, it was very poorly made.
Like amateur hour or just
like simpleton.
Oh, so like Jigsaw would be ashamed.
Like,
yeah. Like, there was, in all honesty, some of these documents, in all honesty, some of these documents talk as if, like, it wouldn't even have gone off even if the string had been pulled.
But you said it in a very particular way with these leads and believe it's effective.
Yeah. And here's the thing, too, though. She put it on a school bus. The school buses, like, we all were all on school buses at one point.
Let's put this
they kind of
unknown item on a school bus.
Yeah, so you're telling me that it didn't get jostled around in the school bus? Okay, I'll buy that. But then she's talking about how much of a hard time she had prying this damn box open. Now, I can't assume she was being gentle at all. Like, I'm sure a few times she fucking whacked the shit into this thing.
You know what? A part of me... What if she was a murderer in that too?
That's just it, especially because she was close to Karen. What if they all were part of this? What if
relation between those two characters and the sheriff?
No, there's no connection like that. But
these are real people. They're not.
But then again, think about this. But here's the thing about that. She's having an affair with the superintendent of the school system. I'm sure the superintendent of the school system also has a little bit of power, especially because, like, there's some mentions of, like, political people being threatened in this. I'm sure that some of these people were probably like, we have to find someone to pin this on. And so then the sheriff just kind of goes, well, you know what? This guy kind of fits. Why don't we just... Yeah. And then, you know, who works out better for anybody than Karen having her husband basically put in jail after he won all this stuff from her in a divorce, including custody of the kids. Well, now she can get the custody of the kids back. She can get the house back because he's in fucking jail. Like,
yeah, it's honestly,
there's a lot of motivating around.
It becomes this whole spider web of just theories and conspiracies and stuff like that. And then there are a few other suspects that come into this. Like, for instance, what if, like, why were they so invested in this affair? Why are they so invested in, at first, getting Mary to admit to the affair? If Karen was part of this in the beginning, why would she care about this having, like, this affair thing happening? Like, she wasn't religious at the time. She became religious later.
Yeah, it's the start.
But that's just it, is, what if part of it was that it started with somebody else? Like, for instance, it started with somebody else who was having an affair with the superintendent. Maybe he wasn't just having an affair with Mary. Maybe he was having an affair with a few people. Maybe it was his wife who started this whole thing. And get it out there, we'll broadcast it, blah, blah, blah. You know, send a letter to the husband, try and do this. Or actually, there was a documented thing in this where Mary actually had another person at the school who was interested in her, like in romantically, and she turned him down.
She's married.
Yes, but she turned him down.
She's not married.
What if this guy found out about her having this affair and thought, okay, well, if I break up that and then I break up the husband and wife, I have a shot. So then he goes and breaks this out, and we can say, you know, well, that's kind of a shady thing to think about, but this same guy was found to have raped a 15-year-old later on and then committed suicide. So he obviously wasn't the best character anyways. And the crazier thing about that is when he committed suicide, the letters kind of ceased.
A curiosity. Now, you said before that other people were receiving these letters. Do we have any any information on any of these other letters?
None of them really went big public with it. Like I said, a lot of these were like people who were going to be elected officials, things like that. So they were trying to keep these. If they were to advertise these things revealed secrets. So then all of a sudden their secrets are all over the place and their reputation's ruined. They basically just, I guess, later came forward or were reporting things to the police that I'm being harassed with these stupid letters. And then, yeah. But the reason why Mary Gillespie's is so huge is because of her husband dying, and then because of this whole attempted murder thing when Paul Freshour got put into jail. And then Paul Freshour's letters are very well known because he advertised it to the world to show that I'm innocent. I didn't do this. So, again...
it's interesting. With Mary, I wonder if the superintendent himself actually was receiving these letters, and when he wasn't doing what they said, they went to Mary, and then when Mary wasn't doing it, they went to the next closest person, and that's...
Rolled up the line.
Yeah, like, because it almost seems that way, because it would make sense if from Mary it went to her husband, Ron, there. Why couldn't it have gone from the superintendent to Mary?
Fits with the culture. Start with the men first, because they're a little sour.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, there's also the possibility that it originally started off as something like that, like somebody who was actually trying to break this all up, and then somebody copycatted on top of that. Or Karen and Mary decided, you know what, these letters are circulating, maybe we can just jump in with it.
It definitely seems like there's multiple personalities here, with multiple agendas.
Yeah.
Especially that there's no consistency with letters. Like, anybody can tack on something to get something done. It's a pretty nefarious atom.
And also, why didn't the police investigate this tip? Because this was a lead that was given to them. This yellow El Camino was a lead that was given to them. They never pursued it.
At all?
No. They took...
That vehicle is sick.
Yeah. They literally just found a footprint that didn't match Paul Freshour, and then basically went, oh well. And then there's this person being like, no, right at that location, right around the same time, there's a big man with sandy hair driving in a yellow El Camino. That's a lot of information for police to just go, oh well.
This is also state's country cop. Like, never attribute to malice.
This is the county seat, though.
Doesn't mean I care.
And they're not far from Columbus. They're a city too. They're a well-known city, so it's not like little town. It's not a big population, but
it is little town, but it's satellite little town.
Yeah, but like they still have a lot of. It just feels like there's a lot of corruption there, and then that brings me back to the sheriff being the second generation. Maybe there's a lot of appeal to a higher loyalty happening here. Like maybe
who would be invested in this guy's death and this lady's marriage?
Well, again, maybe the superintendent has bigger things. Maybe one of the political people was like, just find a guy and we'll help you fix it together for you.
Well, did the super and that lady hook up after?
What do you mean?
Like, did they become an official couple?
She admitted to the affair. Yeah. She didn't admit to anything else from there, and he was still married.
Like, did they get married? Sort of thing?
No.
After, I think what he's saying is after the husband died, everything just ended.
And that was probably the whole thing with the whole after he died, her admitting the affair was probably just to save face.
Yeah.
She said it was in an attempt to stop the letters, and then again trying to save face. Oh, we started after the letters, which.
Right.
Come on. I have not... okay, in all the comment threads, everything that I saw, all the Reddit feeds, not a single person goes, I believe her. Like...
She sounds like the Carol Baskin of the story.
Essentially.
You know what? I really shouldn't have watched that show before we started these podcasts.
Maybe the letter writer is Carol Baskin. Maybe she lost the Miss Pumpkin Queen thing and was like, you know what?
He gets it. He gets it. This is why you're over here and we're in front of the mics.
Yeah. Are you saying your idea is bad? Should be exiled?
Shut up. Anyway.
Quiet in the cage.
Yeah. Oh, God. And is that everything?
That's the whole story. Like I said, Paul eventually did pass away in 2012 at the age of 70. No real other information on Mary. I'm fairly certain that if she's still alive, she'd probably be in her 70s as well, maybe 80s, possibly dead. It all kind of stops from there.
It's hard to say anything when there's no actual data. Like, nothing was done right.
But this is what I mean, is like this whole case is so weird because there's a death, and they like some people think that he was having a shootout with the killer,
Single bullet.
So Unexplained Mysteries did really push the fact that this was the killer, and this was this was the killer, this was the letter writer, and this was this and all that. Pardon?
Who were they pushing?
No, they weren't really pushing for anybody to be the letter writer. They were just saying this is because they were going based on the fact that even though Paul Freshour was convicted, he wasn't guilty. Because it's unsolved mysteries. So if they have somebody in jail and they're like, he's the one that did it, then it's not really unsolved anymore.
Yeah. They solve the unsolved mysteries. That's their new program now.
Yeah. But anyways, so that's just it. Is like they really pushed that whole factor, and like, he left the house and he went after this guy or go to meet him. We don't know that. Now, you can make some assumptions based on that, okay, maybe he received this phone call, maybe this person was like, you know what, I'm here, come get me, kind of thing. Maybe they confirmed who he thought the killer was, and he was like, you know what, that's him, I'm just going to go and do this. Maybe that's why he was drunk.
Could have been like super saying, I'm still sleeping with your wife. Like, it's not necessarily related to this.
Not even just that, though. The gun being fired off, so basically in the reports, how it's kind of listed is that there was a missing case and a missing bullet out of this thing. Maybe he just grabbed the gun and ran out the house, and maybe he had already fired off a shot at one point and never reloaded it. However, if I'm gonna go and confront somebody and I'm bringing a gun with me, I'm probably gonna make sure that fucker's loaded.
Not if you're drunk.
Again, too, it could be that he got drunk to have some liquid courage because he's like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker, but I'm going to need some liquid courage to go and do this. Like,
just grab the whiskey bottle and wah.
Yeah. But then it was literally minutes later. Literally minutes after he left was when he crashed into that tree and died. And nobody knows what happened between him leaving the house and crashing into this tree. They just know that he crashed into the tree, died, that his alcohol level was high, and that he was missing a bullet from the gun. That it seemed that there was one bullet fired off.
And he left his kids alone at home.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that some of these kids were teenagers, though, so...
So, a lot of us are latchkey kids. We were left alone a lot, but not really.
Fine, I'll accept
a happy home, white boy.
Come from a happy home. Jeez.
And now for Wes's sad life.
May 28th, 1990, a young fat child was born. That child was J Wes Secord.
And he hated his first name.
and he hated his first name even then. It never grew. In fact, to this day, many don't even know it, don't say it out loud on air.
I will never say it out loud on air.
Okay, good, because if people want to know what it is, they have to guess. But yeah, that's how it goes.
I'd like to say I accept bribes.
Token has no loyalty.
Yeah, it's among the stereotypes he's a part of. Well, that was an interesting story.
Yeah, and the case itself is actually attributed a lot to the Watcher case, which is a whole other case about letters being received that are revealing secrets and so on.
Well, we should cover that sometime later.
Yeah, there's no actual murder in the Watcher case. It's just a dark case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's no murder in this case. It's an attempted murder, but we don't know if Ron was killed by this person or if he just crashed his truck and died.
Yeah, the death has a mystery behind it.
And
that's what makes it so
And again, why the hell was Paul locked up that long? Those appeals should have been going through, and then have the... because they even say the prison warnings, because he was moved between two prisons, and in both prisons the wardens and the guards believed that he was completely innocent because he kept receiving these stupid letters.
So much judicial incompetence here.
So just have those guys go to the parole board and be like, we don't believe he's guilty. We actually believe he's innocent, and then put all the proof on the table. And an appeal board would have, like the parole board or the appeal board would have to like grant him at least a retrial. Like,
to be fair, going the other way, there could be a political rationale not to have that, because that is an embarrassing thing for both the judge, the prosecution, and the state would have to reimburse him for being falsely imprisoned. So there's a lot going the other way to make sure this guy's fair.
But not even just that. Why didn't he state his alibi outright?
I still think he loves his wife.
Another thing in this, when one of the things that the defense asked, like upon cross-examination of the sheriff when they were talking about going to the garage to get the gun, was, while you guys were in the garage and while you were searching his house, did you find any of this certain twine? Did you find any of this certain thing? Did you find any certain this? And like all these things that made up the booby trap, and the sheriff kept being like, nope. If none of these things exist in the house, and then so here's the whole thing. I almost forgot. We were almost near the end of the episode of this. This is the whole thing for the evidence as well. Paul was actually a veteran in the military, and that serial number was not properly scratched off. And Paul's actually a very educated man. He has a few degrees, things like that, and they're from prominent universities. He'd be smart enough to eliminate that serial number.
Interesting.
Why would it be such a lazy, sloppy job of eliminating the serial number, unless they wanted to make it look like he covered it up and was making it into a sloppy attempt, or it was a sloppy attempt on them and then realized it's a lot harder to take a serial number off a gun than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about this is sloppy.
Yeah.
On both sides.
It's
every side. I don't even think there's two. I think there's way too many to follow.
And then, again, in this whole thing, maybe Paul was a part of it in the beginning. Maybe he knew that his wife was the letter maker. Maybe he knew that if he did put this out there and put out his alibi, that all of a sudden they're going to turn the attention on her. And then by turning the attention on her, maybe because like Token said, if he was still in love with her, well, now she's going to end up facing this trial and all this stuff. It's just better for me to take the fall. But then protest your innocence the whole way through. Like, there's a lot of this that's just messy kind of thing. Like,
very inconsistent and indirect. No one's actually saying what they want.
This definitely explains why people are saying there's a conspiracy theory behind it, because, well, like you said, nothing makes sense. Nothing lines up, there's too many plot holes, and the story doesn't have the ending we expect it to.
Yeah,
I mean, it does. Especially when it comes to judicial misconduct. It's just the complete lack of any stable, secure knowledge. Every piece of information and data we have is biased by a certain party that might be involved. There's no independent data at all in this case, other than this happened.
Can I just make a metaphor? Seriously? I just wanted to make a metaphor. I thought I was cool. But no, you had to be pedantic. I get it.
Just let J Wes make the metaphor.
Oh, well, that was a really interesting one. This was a great episode. I actually had a blast this time. And even though it's our third episode, we got fan mail. Actually, it's really interesting. I haven't opened it yet, so I thought I'd read it on air. It says, do not air this episode, or we will kill the white guy.
Okay. So, just for clarification, where is this letter postmarked from?
Wait, what? Where the other letters come from?
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, that's where this comes from.
This is weird.
Yeah.
Let's see those letters. They're kind of like block letters.
Yeah. Like, here, take a look.
Let's see. That's very, very odd.
Yeah, I know, it's weird.
So.
Did you want to see? Okay. Yeah.
I'm not that invested.
He just believes it.
Yeah, there's more written here, but I'm not smart enough to come up with any more for it. So, that's the end of our show. Once again, I'm J Wes Secord.
Before we end this, or whatever, well, we still have the like I said, we have a Patreon. Please donate to that.
Sorry.
I set up some tiers for it. It should be going live any day now. Probably around the same time that these episodes are released. Like to thank my brother for going through the audio and making sure that this goes forward.
I would also like to thank Benjamin Bateson, who is in the middle of finishing and finalizing our epic logo for the show.
All right, thank him. We also have social media happening.
Thank him. Yep, moving on.
We also have social media. On Instagram, we're Jar Pandora's, because that's how it goes. And we're also at Pandora's Jar 4535 on Twitter. And from there, we'll also probably set up a PayPal where you guys can donate as well if you wish. But
have you gotten anything on the Twitter? Because I'm actually kind of excited.
Not yet. We have quite a few followers starting already, but...
Oh, man. I can't wait to see what people ask and whatnot. I get questions and be like, question for this person, and then we just answer in some ridiculous manner.
Yeah, like I said, like what I'm hoping to do with some of these tiers is have like some actual bonus episodes, and some of the longer questions that would take a longer time answering, we would just kind of sit down and do the Q&A. Also, like I said, I kind of have some mini cases that we can actually like run through. They probably wouldn't be long enough for a full episode, so maybe do 2 mini cases every now and then.
Yeah, we just sit down. You know what? I'm just gonna stop this here because this is more discussion that's gonna happen off. Like you're getting the behind the scenes right now.
Yeah. We pulled the veil.
We can't give you these behind. This is just a taste of the behind the scenes. If you get to our highest tier of Patreon, you get to hear the rest of this bullshit.
It's all bullshit.
Well,
all right.
You guys have a good night. I'm J Wes Secord. We got Bad Ben, our good bag of facts, and AT Token, the guy in the corner in the cage. Good night.